We're joined now by Jean Charest, the former Quebec Premier, the former Deputy Prime Minister, and a partner of McCarthy Tétrault. Mr. Charest, thanks as always. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
So that concept of going big, first of all, what do you make of the actions we've seen and what we still need to potentially see?
We need to keep in mind that all of this, John, is unprecedented. I mean, there's very little that we can refer to in the past that will really help us out. This is not 2008. It's not 9/11, though it's resembles a little more 9/11, but with long-lasting results. Keep in mind that once all of this is over, our lives will be changed forever. And the impact on the economy is going to be major. Reducing interest rates is not going to be very helpful. I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. Bear in mind that the corporate sector, both in Canada and the United States, are heavily indebted. So even reducing interest rates doesn't solve the issue of liquidity for them. Getting money and access to money is going to be a big issue for them as the economy dries up. Consumers in Canada are also heavily indebted, much more than the Americans. About 180% worth of their worth is above disposable income is in debt right now. A lot of it in mortgages, about 65 to 70%. So it's not disastrous, but still no maneuvering room. So whatever the federal government does, it has to be money targeted to what will be spent in the economy, getting people to actually disperse money into the economy as opposed to taking it and saving it or trying to hoard it for another moment. So it'll be very tricky for the government to do this.
And one of our guests earlier, Michael Sprung, making the point, maybe not so much hoarding, but if you're at home, the literal challenge in spending that money. I mean, how do we tackle that if it's not an issue of wanting to hold on the money, but just restrictions on where you actually go? How do you get money into the economy if that's the case?
Well, it's going to be a tough question. I'll give you an example. I would not reduce the GST. I mean, there was someone out there saying reduce the GST. First of all, when you do that, when the day comes where you have to reestablish it, it is going to be politically very painful. So they have to keep in mind whatever they do has to be something that is not going to create even more grief and economically or even politically later on. Straight cash is probably still the best solution, but you may want to tie it to some specific spending in certain areas of consumption, and as opposed to just handing it over, because people, as you mentioned, they're not in a spirit to spend. If they get any disposable income, the insecurity is so high, the probability is they'll just probably want to keep it or apply it to debt or try to do it, keep it in a way that will give them more maneuvering room as opposed to spending more money.
We're almost running out of time, Mr. Charest, but I did want to address something that President Trump was just asked, the border between Canada and the United States. Obviously, many Canadians are already preparing for border closures for most non-citizens right now. The president said he will be discussing this with Canada. He didn't really imply there's anything coming or any changes, because obviously that's an important border, yeah, in terms of crossing. But what do you think is going to happen when it comes to North American borders?
I'm guessing that the border will stay open for the purpose of commercial transactions. There's $2 billion a day of trade that goes back and forth. We are their biggest trading partner, but both countries will probably agree that non-essential travel, recreational travel, even family travel will be shut down between both countries. That's what I would anticipate. We should worry about the United States. They are way behind in what they should be doing, and that'll have a spillover effect on Canada. We are more advanced, and we should continue to be very firm in what we're doing if we're going to break this curve and bring it down.
And real quickly before you go, so if there was some timing on us saying, okay, let's not be doing any travel, which is obviously that's something that's going to concern a lot of Canadians who maybe they're vacationing in the United States, yep, right now. But like, what's the timing? Because obviously it's the concern about how quickly we do things here right now.
You need to give folks some time to be able to readjust and travel back home. I think that will probably be included in whatever initiative is out there. But, this is very urgent. It's unusual. We need to be extremely disciplined. And I think Canadians need to keep in mind that the Americans are late to this. They are heading from what I would guess more towards an Italian scenario than what we've seen elsewhere. And for that reason, it is in Canada's interest to restrict the crossings to purely commercial essential goods and limit whatever contacts we have for the sake of the Americans and ourselves being able to break this curve and eventually overcome this virus.
Mr. Charest, thanks as always for your time. We do appreciate it.